Well, folks, next up we have Rowena Smith. Rowena is the Managing Director and CEO of Australian Strategic Materials. She's been in the resources sector for 30 years in operational, commercial and strategy roles with the likes of BHP and South 32. This is Rowena's third time taking to the stage at Diggers and Dealers. And fun fact about Rowena is her first business venture was in her late teens making cakes for cafes, and her specialty was making the croquembouche for people's weddings. So if you think that's pretty challenging, running ASM must be I'm going to say it's going to be a piece of cake. Please welcome Rowena to the stage, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. I can say that I did learn early the difficulty of starting a business without having properly thought through labour rates and profit margins. So that lesson was well learned. But look, thanks very much for having me here today, and particularly thanks for the opportunity for us to tell the ASM story. We are in exciting times at the moment in the rare earths industry, and that's what we do here at ASM. We're building a global rare earths and critical minerals business to meet the needs of those downstream markets that are emerging in the Western world. It has been a very eventful year. The geopolitical uncertainty, which we've been hearing a lot about, has definitely created opportunity for those of us in rare earths. The vulnerability of this supply chain and how dominated it is by Chinese production, over 90% of the midstream processing, the refining, the metallisation, the alloying and the magnet production, over 90% of that is controlled in China. And that vulnerability has been known for some time, but it hasn't really been felt. And what we saw with the Liberation Day and with the tariff sort of events that have been happening in recent months is we saw that shift to an urgency around establishing these alternative supply chains. In particular, the first response that China had when they received notification of the increased tariffs from the US was they put export restrictions on all of the heavy rare earth materials that were coming out of China, which is pretty much 100% of the world's production at the moment, as well as the specialist alloys, the NdFeB alloys that are the major constituent for the magnets, as well as the magnets. And what that then has set in train is a chain of events where not just the US is very focused on how are they going to establish continuity for these supply chains so that their emerging magnet producers and, importantly, the users of those magnets, the car manufacturers, the robotics, the defence industries, how are they going to ensure that they're going to have security of supply? So they've certainly been active, but so has the EU, so has Korea, so has Japan, and where we had seen a lot of talk in recent times, in the last few months, we've really seen it drive to action. So this is ideally positioned for ASM strategy. We have a strategy to go from mine all the way through to metal, and our strategy anticipated this shift in the world dynamic some time ago. So we've been working on it for a while, and it's nice that we are ready now to be able to fully take advantage of this shift in that global dynamic. We have an advanced project in New South Wales. I don't agree with Ken that New South Wales isn't a great jurisdiction, even though I am a Perth girl, so there's no doubt I love WA, but we feel very pleased to be working there in New South Wales with our Dubbo mine, where we will refine and separate those materials to be able to be taking them through to one of our metals plants. The first metals plant we already have in production in Korea, that's been producing since 22, but we've also got very advanced plans to be able to replicate that capacity in the US. And these are the product lines, as I said before, that are going into all those advanced manufacturing industries that are so dependent. What we have been celebrating in recent times is real progress on a number of fronts. The Korean metals plant, particularly in recent months since those restrictions that we saw imposed by China, has had a huge influx of inquiries, so we're busy ramping up our facility there. We have been broadening our product range and just had success with our first heavy rare earth metallisation there, which I will talk to, as well as I said before, well progressed on our expansion plans into the US. But we've also recently had a really good look at how could we accelerate the rare earth production for Dubbo and bring that online faster, but also really lower that initial capital hurdle, which I think has been a constraint for us in getting Dubbo into production to date. We've just been to market with the support of Canaccord and just had great support from our established investors, shareholders, as well as some really exciting new participants in our register. So just under $25 million, which adds to the $19 million that we had at year end, which means we've got a really good cash position to be able to focus this year on getting in and delivering. This is the plant in Korea that I said we established. It's been in production since 2022. We built this through the COVID period. We're very proud of this facility. It's been producing light rare earth NdPr metal since 2022, and then since 23 we have been making that NdFeB alloy, that specialist alloy that goes to the magnet facilities. We built this plant ahead of the rest of the ecosystem in Western countries being there, so the ramp up of this facility has really been constrained by the magnet producers establishing themselves outside of China. And again, it's why the dynamic just recently has been so exciting for us, because we've gone through the product validation processes on both our metals and alloys with numerous producers in Korea, in Japan, in North America and in Europe. But what we've seen in recent weeks is those orders starting to come in. So Novion Magnetics, that's an emerging US producer in Texas. We've got a 100-tonne agreement in place with them. First deliveries, first 15-tonne, has just started to go out last month. Vacuum Schmelzer, a German established magnet producer who also have got funding from the US government to replicate a facility in the States, in South Carolina. We've got first orders from them, commenced last month across an array of these alloy products. USA Rare Earths, they just listed earlier this year and are in a very strong capital position now to be able to progress their plan. They're commissioning their magnet facility at the moment in Oklahoma. We've got a 5-year a 5-year supply agreement for them to supply 60% of their raw material needs, and indeed we've just sent them samples to support them on this early part of their commissioning, but they'll be ramping up through next year. And very excited to have announced just in recent weeks the MOU with Neo Materials MagnaQuench, which is their magnet division. They have operations in China, in Thailand, and they're just, in fact, doing a grand opening of their new facility in Estonia next month. We've been delivering them the light rare earth metal, but one of the reasons they're particularly interested in broadening out the relationship into something that is a longer term and more collaborative arrangement is because of our capability to metallise heavy rare earths. I only know of one other producer who is able to provide that technology outside of China commercially at the moment, and for those who've got access to heavy rare earth oxides and they need the metals to be able to make their magnets, we are a very unique capability partner. So again, excited about the conversations with Neo. Some of those customers have got their own oxides that we will toll treat for them. Others need us to purchase it. We've got arrangements in place with providers from Australia, as well as the US and Europe for Western-sourced oxides to be able to support growth here in this facility. The facility is currently got installed capacity of 600 tonne of metal and 1,300 tonne of alloy. We've spent about 60 million US there at the moment, and we have got a pathway design capacity to take that up to 3,600 tonne. But importantly, we are working on that additional product capability to be able to do the terbium and the dysprosium, and got really good economics here for when it is at full capacity, which we're anticipating could be in 2027. But expanding this into the US is one of the exciting stories that we've got, and this we are well progressed on at the moment. We've been talking to the DoD about funding support. We have just had actually due diligence trip to the states. We've been looking at 6 different states, but we're narrowing that down to the top 2 states over the next few months. What we're seeing in the US is that the policy is extremely supportive of putting this facility into that jurisdiction, and we are seeing that not just at the Trump administration, the federal, but actually at the state level, very strong competition to having this facility put into their own jurisdiction. So again, we're thinking that the economics of this will look similar to what we have seen in Korea. I think actually we'll see it'll be a lower cost operation than what we've got in Korea. We're going through that process of finalising state selection and talking with DoD about funding. We've got a formal submission in with them that we're hoping that we'll hear back this side of Christmas on. And all going well, we will then progress with making a commitment decision on that next year and commencing construction in 27. But Dubbo, our resource in New South Wales, is a very important part of the story as well, because these metals plants need feed. And whilst there are a number of light rare earth projects that are starting to develop outside of China, there are very few that are rich in heavy rare earths, and you need those heavy rare earths to be able to make these specialist alloys for these magnets. So Dubbo is a polymetallic. It has the light rare earth, neodymium, praseodymium, but it also has the terbium and the dysprosium and zirconia, niobium and hafnia. And all the study work that we've done to date, and we've been working on this for 20 years, I'm sure many of you have heard the story before, all was working on a full flow sheet that brought all of those products to market simultaneously. And, it had a lot of advantages. It's a very big resource. It's a 75 million tonne resource. It's in a tier 1 jurisdiction. It is regional rather than remote. It is fully approved to be able to proceed. And we have done many years of work on the technologies to be able to do the separation and refining with ANSTO, as well as working with Bechtel on the final engineering. So we feel very strongly about the quality of this project, but the $1.7 billion starting price has been tough, particularly for a company of our market cap. And so what we challenged ourselves last year is, could we find a lower cost pathway to accelerate the rare earth production? We got some federal funding to support us on that, and we just released the scoping study on that a couple of weeks ago. We're really excited about this. We've identified that the heap leach option does give us a simplified flow sheet with substantially reduced upfront capital. It's less than 50% of what the original capital was, low operating costs and robust financials. And when you look at it specifically, one of the things that we're particularly excited about is that this brings us those 3 products that the market really needs at the moment, the light rare earths, but also a high volume of the terbium and the dysprosium for less than $750 million in capital. The costs for all 3 of those products sit well within the first quartile of costs for Western suppliers for these materials. And across a range of pricing forecasts, we're seeing robust internal rate of returns. The funding position has been a focus for us for some time. So while we were seeing the $1.7 billion initial outlay for capital being challenging, we were nonetheless getting very strong support from governments across the Western countries to be able to provide us with debt support. And we've got over $1.5 billion worth of conditional ECA support for this project. What we've been doing as we've been going through doing this heap leach scoping study is continuing to talk with them about being able to resize that to be able to support the heap leach first phase. They're very supportive of this approach. They like the de-risking that this provides, that we can get those first 3 products up into production early, and then we can use the revenue from that to be able to go on and do further development and access the rest of the materials in the ore body as a second phase. We also are seeing that it's simplified the offtake discussion. So at the same time that the market is really actively looking now to secure light rare earths and heavy rare earths all the way from mine, we have got the opportunity to be able to provide a project that is a much simpler proposition and lower cost proposition for them to invest in, and we are able to offer them a solution that takes it all the way from mine all the way through to alloy for them and solve those parts of the supply chain that are challenging for them as well. So we're working now on completing the column leach testing and refining the CapEx and OpEx estimates to complete the PFS study by Q1 of next year, and that keeps us on track for being able to commence construction there in Dubbo in 27. So that is ASM. We are the only ASX-listed company that will give you exposure to rare earths all the way from mine to metal. We are the only ones who are producing light rare earth metals and alloys today, and we've got lots coming up in the next year to watch out for. So thanks very much for your time today.